As Achille said, I think that my role here is to give you an overview of the policy that the European Union has towards Libya, but also to provide a number of facts, indeed, because there is a need, I would say, in this type of debates also to provide a little bit the bigger picture. It's true that today we're talking about the responsibility for supporting the Libyan coast guards, but I would like to start by saying and by reminding all that Libya is not just a place where migrants are passing by or are detained. Libya is a country that has gone through very difficult times and is still in a very difficult situation. And that's how the EU and EU policy looks at Libya. So Libya as a country to be supported, and in which the support for the political process and support for governance are the key objectives. Obviously, improved governance will also help address the migration challenge. We're aware of that. However, our policy, as defined by the Foreign Affairs Council, and I invite you to have a look, for example, at the Council conclusions of 3rd of February, looks first of all at supporting the political process and supporting the UN Special Representative plan in this respect. Secondly, we try to work closer and closer with our international partners, United Nations, but also African Union, League of Arab States. With the three of them, the EU has formed a quartet that wants to ensure that the international approach towards supporting Libya is coherent and unified. And we're also looking at keeping our support for the Libyan population, which is also undergoing through difficult times recently. So if we think of our support, political, but also financial to Libya, we cannot look at only one fraction of it, supporting for one institution, actually one part of an institution, which is the Libyan Coast Guards under the Navy. We indeed have 120 million euros of bilateral support that are aimed mainly and chiefly at supporting the political process, security. We support projects in terms of mediation, in particular at the local level, that overall contribute to the political process. We also support strengthening of governance. That means that all the institutions in Libya with which we can work at the moment also benefit from our projects, for example, partially in the field of judiciary. We also support human rights defenders, civil society organizations, and we try to tackle the needs of the Libyan population, particularly in the area of health, education. In addition to this, I also would like to remind that 30 million of humanitarian support to Libyans that are themselves internally displaced in Libya due to the conflict and due to localized conflict at the moment. I think it is important to give a little bit of the broader picture of what the EU is trying to do and achieve in Libya overall. Now let me turn obviously to migration, which is the main topic of today's discussion. So if you look at migration, again, it's probably important to recall that we do not only support the Libyan coast guards. The policy towards migration in Libya and more broadly towards the central Mediterranean route has been defined quite clearly in January of last year with the joint communication of the High Representative, Vice President Mogherini and the Commission on the central Mediterranean route. I think it is a quite important policy document to be recalled because we defined a comprehensive approach to migration that looks at all different angles. So we engaged on working both on Libya, on the neighboring countries, and all along the routes of migration. Obviously, there is no quick fix to the situation, and we and our partners, IOM, UNHCR, the other UN agencies, are working in quite difficult conditions on the ground. However, we have defined 5 main areas and 5 priorities that I would like to go in the details. So first and foremost, I think the priorities, this has been said over and over again, priority for you is to save lives. I think probably as Simon Mordieu said earlier on, not engaging does not seem to be a solution, was not seen as a solution in front of the increasing number of deaths, in particular in the Mediterranean Sea. However, our engagement is both on saving lives at sea and in the desert. We cannot forget that many of the deaths actually take place on the route that leads to Libya, in the route that leads to the coast of Libya. So what have we been doing? I'd like to remind maybe a few figures. Operation Sophia, I guess you're familiar with that. It is a CSDP operation that is mandated by member states, whose main task is actually counter-smuggling, not saving lives. Nonetheless, by abiding by its obligations under international law, it contributed to save 42,900 lives in the Mediterranean since 2016. And if you look at Operation Triton, which is somehow a different animal in the EU structures, it is an operation under Frontex, or what is now called European Border and Coast Guard Agency, also contributed to save 150,000 migrants. However, we need to be realistic. Most of deaths have been happening and continue to happen, not in international waters. That's where we can, as EU, perform search and rescue operation, and we can contribute to saving lives, but they happen in Libyan territorial water. And that's where I think, finally, the Libyan coast guards come in. The question was how to structure a capacity building that would create, obviously, or would support the existing forces on the ground and help our member states also to have a counterpart on the other side of the shores, with whom the maritime centers from, for example, Italy and Malta can be put in touch and could work jointly. I think this is more or less the overall aim or the overall goal that we are looking for. So we started to train the Libyan Coast Guards in October 2016. This was an additional task that was given to Operation Sophia. And this is also something that the EU Seahorse Mediterranean project that is funded by the Commission have been endorsed. Let me give a bit of details about these trainings, because it is also important to understand that this does not happen in a sort of policy or legal void. People or trainees who wants to participate, to take part in these trainings, needs to go to a quite strict vetting process that looks at their full records. So we have intelligence information, ICC information provided by Libyan authorities that are cross-checked. The training themselves do include human rights and refugee law component. These are delivered by UNHCR and IOM. And in addition to that, there is also a monitoring system in place that look at the conduct of personnel, but also at the overall performance. Since we started, Libyan Coast Guards have also contributed to saving lives. And in terms of, between 15,000 and 20,000 people have been rescued by the Libyan Coast Guards in 2017. I see that I have only 2 minutes. I had a much longer presentation. So I would like now to turn to a second area where I think it is important also to set the record straight, which is the area of protection and protecting migrants. So first of all, if you look at in a way, the intent that was mentioned as one of the elements of responsibility. So there's no doubt that human rights violations and allegations of slavery have been condemned in the most straightforward way by EU institutions, and I'm referring to the last statements by the HRVP, for example. But not only that, I mean, the EU has been taking positive action to improve the situation on the ground. And again, giving some figures, thanks to EU funding, that on migration amounts to 182 million of euros. And in cooperation with IOM and UNHCR, we have been taken out of Libya 23,000 people through assisted voluntary returns. That means that to get there, first we had to ensure access to detention centers. Now IOM tells us that they do have access to all 21 official detention centers, as compared to a random and limited access only 1 year ago. This is a tangible result, I think. IOM is present at disembarkation points to provide direct assistance to migrants brought on shore. And we provide, thanks to that, also an alternative to staying in detention center and in Libya as a whole by reintegration packages. Second point that I want to mention, then I will stop. It is extremely important to remember that since this December, we have started evacuation in view of resettlement. That means that from Libya, a country that does not even sign the Geneva Convention, UNHCR is currently able, with EU funding, to take people out and bring them to a durable solution, which means a resettlement perspective in one of the EU member states. And so far we have around 400 people that have been evacuated, either directly to Italy, France, or to Niger, where they have to wait for their case to be fully handled by one of the member states. As we have very little presence on the ground, therefore also these operations are more difficult. I will stop here, and I will be available for, of course, providing more details. And I think that this very brief overview would show that not only the EU is not contributing to the human rights violation situation, but is actively using political, diplomatic, financial tools, CSDP measures to actively improve the situation on the ground. Thank you.